Who makes CarQuest motor oil? Not Valvoline, not Warren Distribution, not ExxonMobil. The answer is a 122-year-old independent blender whose name never appeared on the bottle. And as of January 2026, CarQuest oil no longer exists. Advance Auto Parts killed the brand entirely. We traced the plant codes, pulled the Blackstone Labs data, and found something in the additive package that blew past every premium brand on the shelf. Welcome to Who Creates What. The information in this video is based on our independent research of public documents like safety data sheets and API registries. Manufacturer partnerships can change, and we are not sponsored by or affiliated with any brands mentioned. Always check your product labels. Here's what's happening behind every CarQuest jug ever sold. Advance Auto Parts does not own a blending facility. They don't refine base oil. They don't operate a single piece of manufacturing equipment related to motor oil production. CarQuest is, and always was, a private label. A sticker on someone else's product. That someone is a moly Oil Company, headquartered in Tampa, Florida. Moly was founded in 1903 in Amalia, New Mexico, later relocating its operations to Tampa, where it still runs one of the largest independent blending operations on the continent. And by independent, I mean something specific. Moly is not owned by Shell, not owned by ExxonMobil, not a subsidiary of any major refinery. Pennzoil is a Shell product. Mobil 1 belongs to ExxonMobil. Castrol is owned by BP. These companies control the entire chain, from the oil well to the retail shelf. Moly doesn't. It operates as what the industry calls a contract blender, purchasing finished base oil on the open market from the same Tier 1 refiners that supply everyone else, then blending the final product with a targeted additive package at its Tampa facility. And this is how private label motor oil works across the entire auto parts industry. The label says CarQuest. The blender is Moly. The base oil comes from the same global supply chain, feeding the brands, charging you twice as much per quart. So what about that base oil? The foundational fluid making up roughly 80% of any motor oil is called base stock. CarQuest Full Synthetic used Group 3 base oil, the same classification flowing into Pennzoil Platinum, into Castrol Edge, and into most full synthetic products on the American market. Group 3 is produced by a small number of global refiners. SK Lubricants in South Korea and Neste in Finland are two of the largest. That same base stock gets shipped to blenders worldwide. What changes from bottle to bottle is not the base, it's the additive package. And that's where CarQuest gets interesting. Moly sources its additive packages from three of the largest specialty chemical companies on the planet: Lubrizol, Infinium, and Afton Chemical. These are not off-brand suppliers cutting corners. Lubrizol and Infinium supply additive technology to Castrol, Mobil 1, and Valvoline. Afton Chemical holds over 2,000 lubricant patents. When Moly blends a full synthetic motor oil to API-SP specification under the CarQuest label, it's pulling from the exact same additive technology ecosystem as the premium brands. Here's what that additive package actually contains, and what each component does inside your engine. Starting with the most important one. Zinc dialkylithiophosphate, known as ZDDP, is the primary anti-wear compound in every modern motor oil. It forms a sacrificial protective film on metal surfaces under high-pressure contact, specifically on cam lobes and lifters. CarQuest Full Synthetic 5W20 tested at 776 parts per million zinc. The industry operating range is 700 to 800. Right in the middle. Then there's organic molybdenum, a friction modifier that reduces metal-on-metal contact along cylinder walls, present at 58 parts per million. Calcium sulfonates and phenates handle detergency and dispersancy. They neutralize combustion acids and keep soot particles suspended in the oil instead of letting them cake into sludge. CarQuest tested at 1,083 parts per million calcium. Now here's where it starts to stand out. Boron compounds serve as secondary anti-wear and detergency additives. The universal average across all tested motor oils is 90 parts per million. CarQuest Full Synthetic delivered 199, more than double. And then there's titanium anti-wear additives, a newer generation protection technology showing up in modern synthetic formulations. The universal average is just 3 parts per million. CarQuest delivered 31, that's over 10 times the benchmark. The certification stack backs all of this up. CarQuest Full Synthetic carried API SP, the highest current American Petroleum Institute service category, ILSAC GF6A for fuel economy and engine protection in modern gasoline engines, and GM Dexos 1 Gen 2, which is the OEM level approval required for General Motors warranty compliance without dealership oil. That's not a minimum bar certification package. That is the current top tier for American passenger vehicles. So the question becomes, what does the lab data actually show when you test this oil independently? Numbers on a spec sheet are one thing. Independent lab results are another. Blackstone Laboratories, the most widely referenced independent oil analysis lab in North America, tested virgin CarQuest 5W20 full synthetic straight from a sealed bottle. Here's what they found. On where metals in the virgin sample, aluminum came in at 3 parts per million against a universal average of 0. That's minor manufacturing process carryover, not a wear indicator. Iron showed 2 parts per million versus a universal average of 1, just trace blending process transfer within acceptable range. Copper, lead, tin, and nickel all came back at 0. Clean across the board. No contamination from blending equipment. On additive markers, phosphorus hit 708 parts per million, above the 658 universal average. Phosphorus pairs with zinc as the ZDDP anti-wear system, zinc confirmed at 776. Titanium at 31, which is over 1,000% above the 3 parts per million universal average. Boron at 199, sitting 121% above the 90 average. Calcium at 1,083, functional and sufficient for standard drain intervals. Molybdenum at 58, below the 71 average but present and active as a friction reducer. Viscosity performance was clean. SUS at 210 degrees Fahrenheit came in at 53.4, right inside the 47 to 60 acceptable range, confirming proper 5W20 grade behavior. Kinematic viscosity at 100 degrees Celsius measured 8.31, mid-range within the 6.3 to 10.5 specification window. No thinning, no thickening. Flashpoint landed at 430 degrees Fahrenheit. That's the temperature where the oil begins to volatilize. At 430, fresh out of the bottle, CarQuest has solid thermal headroom for normal driving conditions across a full drain interval. 0 insolubles, 0 water, 0 glycol contamination. The Blackstone verdict on CarQuest Full Synthetic was fully serviceable. Every anti-wear additive present and functional, no contamination, no viscosity anomaly. And in 2 specific categories, titanium and boron, it outperformed the universal average by a wide margin. That's the Oil Advanced Auto Parts just pulled off the shelf. On the 5th of January 2026, Advanced Auto Parts published an official press release introducing Argos, a new owned oil and fluids brand built to replace CarQuest motor oil in every product category across every store. Argos started showing up on Advanced Auto Parts and CarQuest store shelves in February 2026. If you've walked in recently and noticed the CarQuest jugs are gone, this is why. The Argos lineup covers 0W8, full synthetic for newer Toyota and Honda applications, 0W16, 0W20, 5W20, 5W30, and 10W30 in both full synthetic and conventional grades, and 15W40 for heavy-duty diesel engines. The manufacturer is a Moly Oil Company. Confirmed, the same Tampa facility that blended every jug of CarQuest oil is the blending partner behind Argos. So why kill a name that's been on shelves for decades? Here's the backstory. In 2014, Advanced Auto Parts acquired CarQuest's parent company, General Parts International, for $2.04 billion. That deal gave Advance access to CarQuest's massive wholesale distribution network, supplying thousands of independent repair shops across North America. Then in 2023, Advance divested that wholesale network, sold it off. The commercial side of CarQuest, the part that gave the brand its real identity, was gone. What remained was a retail label sitting on an oil jug inside stores that said Advance Auto Parts on the door. A legacy name attached to a business Advance no longer operated. Argos is a clean slate brand. Advance fully owns the name. No legacy distribution baggage, no inherited associations, full control over retail identity and positioning. For you, the person buying the jug, this is the bottom line. If CarQuest Full Synthetic worked reliably in your engine across multiple oil change intervals, Argos is its direct formulation continuation. The API SP certification, the ILSAC GF6A standard, and the Dexos 1 Gen 2 approval all carry forward. The label changed, the chemistry did not. Before we wrap this up, let me hit the 3 questions that come up every single time we cover a private label oil. First, will CarQuest or Argos oil void your manufacturer warranty? No. API SP plus ILSAC GF6 plus Dexos 1 Gen 2 certification satisfies OEM requirements for all major American, Japanese, and most European passenger vehicles. Warranty compliance is tied to the certification on the bottle, not the brand name printed above it. Second, if Mobil 1 uses the same base oil supply chain, why does it cost twice as much? Because you're paying for ExxonMobil's marketing infrastructure, national advertising campaigns, retail shelf placement premiums, global distribution logistics, and decades of brand positioning. The base oil specification and the additive certification target are defined by API and ILSAC. Any blender meeting those targets, moly included, is producing oil that meets the same published performance standard. And third, should you switch to Argos if you were using CarQuest? Same manufacturer, same facility, same additive suppliers, there is zero technical basis for switching away if CarQuest performed reliably in your vehicle. CarQuest motor oil was manufactured by Moly Oil Company in Tampa, Florida, a company founded in 1903 whose name never once appeared on the retail jug. The brand is gone. Argos replaced it. The blender stayed the same. Now, every major auto parts retailer in the United States sells a private label motor oil. O'Reilly, AutoZone, Napa. Each one has a manufacturer, and most of those manufacturers are not printed anywhere on the product. We already decoded the manufacturing codes on Napa motor oil and traced it back to a facility that most people would never guess. That investigation is live right now. The link is on your screen. Subscribe if you want the rest of this series. We're pulling back the labels on every store brand oil in America, and one result in particular caught us completely off guard.